Every writer knows these popular formulas, and every generation of new writers always goes to them as a first resort. Some people insist that they work. Some people insist that they don't. They're both right. The only people who are wrong are the ones saying that there are no formulas. There are. They're right here. They just don't do what those people want them to do. They don't do what they're trying to make them do. In other words, the formulas aren't wrong. It's writers that are wrong. What they really mean when they say there are no formulas is there are no formulas that produce what I'm trying to create. Because there's only one reason why you would ever use a formula, and the reason is reproducibility. The point of a formula is to consistently create the same thing over and over again. So if you input your characters and world building and plot events into these formulas, they will output hero journeys. They will output save the cats. And some people and the institutions that they gatekeep, like traditional publishing and film and TV, they love hero journeys. They love save the cats because they reliably produce a consistent result, sales and revenue for their business. But if you're a writer that's not interested in revenue or institutions, and especially if you're a writer with a very strong, very specific vision for your story, then taking your characters and events and worlds and mashing them into the mold of a formula is only going to disfigure your story into a shape that barely resembles the beautiful vision that you had for it. Of course, you'll never believe in formulas, but you still want to write your story, so what are you supposed to do? If the vision you have for your story isn't producible with any pre-existing formula, what are you supposed to do? Well, you could compromise on your vision and make your story conform to the formula. You could follow someone else's instructions until you and your story fall back into line with what's working for everybody else. Or you can walk a more difficult path. You can write without a formula. And there's actually only two things you need, but they're not trivial, so lock in for this while I explain. There are only two ways that formulas get applied. In the first way, it's at the planning stage and the outlining stage, when you're brainstorming and selecting ideas and arranging their order and relationships to each other. In the second way, it's at the revision and editing stage, when the draft is getting evaluated for what's working and not working, what's good to stay and what needs to change. So we can understand that what a writer is really using a formula for is either figuring out what happens next in the story sequence of events, or giving form and order to a mass of words that already exist. Therefore, if you are going to write without a formula, these are the two things that you will need. You will need the ability to give an explanation. Storytelling is finding the line that joins cause and effect. This is the supreme skill of the storyteller and the essence of storytelling. Evolutionarily, this is why human brains have the storytelling skill at all. Secondly, you are going to need an understanding of the underlying pattern of story. This is a more of an advanced topic, but this refers to things like beginning, middle, and end, or act structure, and pinch points, and midpoints, and turning points. Sometimes other people will talk about how there are no writing formulas, and then they'll proceed to give you some kind of template that simplifies every formula. This underlying pattern is what they're getting at and trying to show you when they do this. It's very, very useful. I have my own theory of this pattern that breaks it down into elements that you can arrange like building blocks and doesn't just simplify everything into like a line on a graph that goes up and down. But that's a topic for a separate video. Now that you know all of that, if you're a writer struggling with using or not using a formula, the best thing you can do for yourself right now is this. Open a fresh document and just sit with your imagination. Write down all the things that excite you about your story. All of your favorite parts. The character details that are the juiciest. The secrets that might be in the backstory that hit hard when they get revealed. Look for the moments that you know would make you go crazy as a reader if you were reading them in a book that your future self had already written. Write all of this down, and you'll get a document where these moments are going to be the guiding light for you as you write your story. If you want to know more about the skills you should be cultivating as a writer, besides the ability to give explanations, you should watch this video.